to see, present those choices to them and see what they think about it, and then, bring it back to us.
Sounds like the right thing to do. Ms. Robinson?
Through the chairman to council, if council is desirous of doing that, I would recommend that we do something similar to the direction that was provided for Booth's Harbor, that we have a preliminary discussion with the residents to get their input on this sort of thing. In order to do that, we actually need direction from council with respect to costing. Is council desirous of having this funded by only the residents affected? Are you desirous of having the rate budget effectively cover all of this? Because if we go and we meet and we say these are the three options, the first thing people are going to be asking is, okay, well, who's paying how much? Because if I have to pay $500, that's one thing. If I have to pay $50,000, I'm not interested in that. I can address it personally. So we need those sort of directions in order to meet with the residents, or we're going to be right back here saying, well, they like the Cadillac version, because they're not, don't believe that it'd be at cost to them.
Well, actually, Mr. Chairman, I don't know what the split should be, whether it's fair to put some of this cost on all the ratepayers or only a part of it, and then the other part on the residents. I really don't know, but the way I think is that they should pay something. It shouldn't go all on the ratepayers, but I don't know what that percentage should be. I don't know if it should be all or part, or I don't know if Lee can respond to that. Or
do you have a response to that, again, Lee?
Through the chairman to council, I don't know if I can give you the appropriate response, because ultimately that's a council decision. That being said, council has taken a very consistent position historically that all development pays for itself. Yeah. And as such, any extension of sanitary sewers has always been on the cost of the people that wish to do that. So I would caution council that if you're going down a path where some of the existing rate budget is paying for new infrastructure not related to servicing them, that would open it up for the development community as well to say, well, you paid to extend them there, you paid to extend it there. Council has in my 3 years here, I haven't seen, nor have I seen anything historical where council has actually funded the expansion of any of these types of projects. These have all been funded by the people that benefit from them.
Well, then I think maybe if that's the way we've been doing business, that's the way we should carry on, or else we'll get into trouble. So based on that, I guess costs can be calculated and figured out and presented to those people on 3rd Ave.
You're saying full cost of any of the three options, all presented to the public.
That seems to be the way we've been dealing with it, so.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm going to go to Councillor Oliver and then Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have much to add to the discussion. I'm just looking at my aerial photograph now, and there are 4 residences on 3rd Ave, and then there are what appear to be 2 commercial type developments on Upper Wellington. So in other words, it looks like 6 separate properties possibly from 2nd Ave down to the bottom end of this 3rd. So at this point, Lee, we had the 2 individuals that came as a deputation. We don't even know, I gather, at this point, whether the other 2 residential property owners have any knowledge or interest in this, and similarly with the commercial or industrial property owners to the north of them. So it seems to me, Mr. Chairman, the first thing that we perhaps could direct staff to do is simply contact all of the property owners that would need to be involved if you were going to come from 2nd Ave down, and give them this report and determine if they have any interest under any circumstance in a cooperative joint effort with their neighbors and with the county to solve this problem.
Ms. Robinson, your comments?
Through the chairman, Councillor Oliver is correct. We have no indication from any of the other property owners in that area whether or not they even wish to proceed with this. And obviously that's something that we would be sourcing out as part of that public meeting.
Okay. Councillor Brown.
Mr. Chairman, I think it was the holding tank problem that instigated this. Didn't those people have a holding tank and they were getting pumped too much, right? I'm sympathetic to what the problem is, but this kind of problem isn't only in this area. There are many areas like this in the county, I'm sure. And if we start one, you're going to start dealing with a lot of them. That's my opinion of it. But I think I'm a proponent of the Local Improvement Act. Glendale Crescent, many areas where we've dealt with it in the past. Water and sewer in Glendale was requested and it was shot down many years ago. I think you offer these people, option one looks attractive, but it doesn't really catch the whole problem. And if you can't get into I don't know if there's basements up there, but I assume there's basements. But and I'm sure some of those connect now to their holding tank or septic or whatever they have. But I personally just say offer these people that, I guess you could go and talk to them all, but I mean, offer them the $40,000 option there, and if they're not willing to pay for it, I don't think the rest of the taxpayers in the county or people that have water and sewer want to pay for their problem. It's somewhat of a case of buyer beware. When you buy a house, you should know what you're getting. So anyways, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, there is a recommendation printed on page 153, which is basically to receive the options as information, or do we want to add something to that? Councillor Oliver?
Mr. Chairman, I'll at least ask that or recommend that we add to that staff be directed to provide this report to all property owners on Upper Wellington and 3rd Ave and determine their interest, if any, in a cooperative solution. Something to that effect.
Councillor Oliver makes that motion. Councillor Black seconds it. Yes, comments?
Clarification on that motion at their cost.
Well, I'm not saying one way or the other, Councillor. I'm just saying, what is their interest in a collective solution?
I'm not supportive of that.
Councillor Black?
I think what we can do,
Microphone, Doug.
and what we can do is Lee, when meeting with those residents up there, can tell them what our current policy is. Our current policy is proceed under the Local Improvement Act. Development pays for itself. We're already doing that. Lee can tell them that, right? Yeah.
Okay, Madam Deputy Clerk, did you get that motion? Can you read it back to us, please? Just to make sure it's what Councillor Oliver wants.
Through the chair, that staff report PW 1841, 3rd Avenue sanitary sewer servicing options be received as information, and that Public Works staff be directed to provide staff report PW 1841 to all property owners on Upper Wellington and 3rd Avenue and determine, if any, there being a collective solution.
Interest. Okay. Anything further? Mayor Luke. Okay, Ms. Robinson.
There's only a section of Upper Wellington that's not serviced, so I will work with the deputy clerk afterwards to get the right address range, because people who are already serviced aren't going to be interested in this report, so I'll work with them, but I think I understand the intention and we'll make the words match.
Okay. Mayor Luke.
More question, if I may, to Lee. Lee, back to option one. When I read it, I was a little confused, but I think I interpreted properly that you're talking about decreasing the depth, or engineering has decreased the depth of the sewers to get this adequate slope. When you're talking about the road work, the mainline sewer, manholes, etc., for 130, is that money that we would charge back to the property owners to do this, the 130? That's where I'm a little confused. You mentioned they would be responsible for the pump ups, and of course.
We would be typically, we would be looking for the development to pay for those costs as well.
So the property owners.
Correct.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, the deputy clerk read the recommendation. I'll call the vote. Those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the OPP Offender Transport Unit access to county fueling stations. This Public Works report. Lee?
Through the chairman to council, before you is a report recommending that staff take the necessary arrangements to enter into an agreement with the OPP's offender transport unit. Currently, although this program is housed here in Simcoe, it is not part of our existing contract with the OPP. It's a different service that they provide. They are doing their emergency planning and have asked if we would enter into a contract with them to provide them with fuel on an emergency basis should we end up in one of those situations. Given the proximity, et cetera, staff have no objections to it, and the report is just here seeking council's authorization to proceed.
Mayor Luke? No, Councillor Black first.
Move the recommendation in the report.
Mayor Luke?
Second.
Seconder? We have the motion on the floor. Are those discussion? None? Okay, I'll read it. That report, PW 1844, the offender transport unit access to county fueling stations be received as information. And then council authorize staff to make the necessary arrangements to provide the Ontario Provincial Police Offender Transport Unit access to Norfolk County's fueling stations to obtain fuel in cases of emergency where they are unable to obtain fuel through their regular means. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The next one is Public Works also. Respecting sidewalk deputation, Rutherford Drive. Ms. Robinson.
Through the chairman to council, before you is the report requested by council when we had a deputation here with respect to the sidewalk on Rutherford Drive. We have just provided this report for information as that's what was asked. We have included some costs if council is desirous of moving forward with that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Before I forget further to this, one of the things that has changed since the writing of this report was that the tenders, I believe, came in from the school with respect to the school board with respect to the Algonav school, and they have now decided not to proceed with that, and they've put it on hold. So they'll not be moving all of the children from one school to the other. So some of the comments in this report are a little bit outdated because of how all the timing worked. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Councilor Black.
Mr. Chairman, we've had this problem all over the county with schools in terms of drop-off. And I guess things have changed. More parents are picking up, dropping off, more bus activity. You know, I guess I don't have a problem as a municipality working with Grand Erie Board of Education, but not assuming all the responsibility for the problems that, you know, all those kids or these different activities are creating. So through you to Lee, do we actually communicate with Grand Erie and trying to come up with a solution, and them really taking the lead on it, their full responsibility, and us working with them to be helpful? And now you've got Elgin at some point. You know, here's a perfect opportunity for them and their design to work with us in creating a proper drop-off.
Through the chairman to council, with respect to all of those sorts of things, going forward with any new school that is built, there is a very different level of service that's provided in terms of drop-offs and all of that sort of stuff. I can say that, you know, in 20 plus years, the way I used to work on a school site is very different from the way that we currently do school sites. School sites now actually have like dedicated bus lanes and drop-off areas for the buses, and I'm going to call them kiss and rides for the children, and it's very different. Unfortunately, you know, most of the school board doesn't have any more money than Norfolk County has, and we can't just go around retrofitting everything to make it to today's situation. The school board is quite good at working with us to actively do what they can when they're doing that. But again, you know, I don't think that they have a funding source for things like this, so they're typically only able to obtain funding when they're already doing some modifications to a school property. In this particular case, my understanding is they will not be doing much to the school property now that they won't be moving all of the children from Elgin to that area.
Will they be doing something at Elgin then, if they've got the funding and it's something new?
Through the chairman to council, they've basically put everything on hold.
So, okay.
So that because their costs came in significantly, even more than I usually see over budget. And that says a lot. So they've really gone back to the drawing board with how they're going to, they have to start over at the very beginning with respect to that project. So it's going to be several more years, I would say, before they move anything forward.
Oh, wow. So it doesn't sound like there's that same need. up at Lindale Heights.
Councillor Sonneberg.
Thank you. Lee has answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Luke.
Well, I think they've always, regardless that Elgin's not coming over now, I believe, conversations I've had over the past few years, there's always been a concern about children there, because that's where they now load and unload their buses, or load up, come out there in the evening, and it's very congested. So I don't, I'm not saying that the need isn't quite as great as if they were bringing in 10 portables that were. Lindale has been in operation there since, it'll be 20 years in September of 1998 opened, believe it or not. It's been there quite some time. When it was built, we obviously, Mr. Chair, had to, at request, extend sidewalks, especially to the north, all the way up to the corner at Donley and wherever else. Can I ask a question through you to Lee? Lee, if we were going to consider this, we saved some sidewalk money on Holden recently? That might be able to be used somewhere where children's safety is, seems to be the question here.
Through the chairman to council, I don't know that we saved money. We're not spending money.
I'm going to use that line on my wife when she wants to go shopping. Very good.
That's from the treasurer is always reminding me that just because I didn't spend it doesn't mean I still have it in my pocket to spend. That being said, we are in the middle of doing all the tenders for the sidewalks
Yes.
in this area. We are a huge advocate in Public Works with respect to installing the sidewalks, doing the connections. Typically, we max out the dollars available. One of our biggest criteria is the connectivity of those sidewalks. And I'd like to remind council that last year we were able to, with some of our cost savings in our sidewalk contract, able to extend the sidewalk on the Queensway. That's been a substantial improvement to that area. That is a very, very actively well-used sidewalk. If we're taking the sidewalk from, if you're going to use the money that was previously allocated for Holden Ave,
Not spent at Holden?
and put it towards something like this, staff would actually probably recommend that it go to filling in gaps that are identified in the active transportation plan and the things like the pathways for people to try to get some of that connectivity as opposed to in the localized area. Should the school board come forward with an offer to fund 50% of this sidewalk, then that's obviously something that we would consider at that point. But at this point, we haven't seen any offers for any kind of funding with respect to the sidewalk
Mr.
in this
Chair,
area.
thank you, and if I may, for two quick comments. First of all, I'm always kind of pay attention when it's small kids. I mean, you know that students start public school, or elementary, I should say, school at 3 3/4, we call it, of age. So they're quite small, and many of them are bused. So I'm always pay attention a little bit when there's young children's safety involved. Here is at all schools and walking to and from. But secondly, Lee, I read that this 150 meters of sidewalk, the price is 32,000, roughly 500, which I thought was very, very reasonable, almost 500 feet of sidewalk. That's the price. It's not bad to install new sidewalks from scratch. So just wondered that's an accurate.
Through the chairman to council, it's about 150 meters of sidewalk, give or take, in that area, maybe 120, to get it basically from, I believe it's Anderson, up to Jones.
Jones, yeah.
Which is effectively the whole area. It's the boulevard in that area is pretty level, and we believe that there may be a few trees that conflict, but generally speaking, there aren't too many utilities that we have to work around. That's why we're seeing that kind of cost in this area. It's not, I would say it's not typical sidewalk cost.
Thank you.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I missed the first part of the discussion on this particular report, but my recollection from when the deputation was here, the main thrust of their deputation was the impending closure of Elgin and the relocation of all those students to Lindale Heights, which we now know is not going to happen for at least a year or two, and perhaps even longer. So it seems to me the urgency of this sidewalk to nowhere project is gone now that major influx of new students and more buses is no longer there. And I don't know whether that's what Lee told council in the first part. That's the part I missed, I guess. But if she did, I agree with her.
Yes. Anything further? Do I have a mover to receive it as information? Wells and Sonnenberg? Mover, a seconder. That report, PW 1845, response to Rutherford Drive sidewalk deputation be received. Is that the way you want to leave it? Just want to make a comment myself. I see in the conclusion of the report, it said, your department says it is suggested that the school board consider on-site alternatives to address student drop-off and pickup. That's what it's noted there. Just wanted to make a point of that. Okay, I read the recommendation. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. And now we're going to Norfolk Street North and Blue Line Road resurfacing projects and Public Works Report 1847. Ms. Robbins.
Through the chairman to council, before you is the report with respect to Norfolk Street North and Blue Line Road. Staff have previously reported to council that we had a bad winter on those two roads and that they were in significant need of repair this year. We were able to acquire OSIF funding for those, which is great news. However, they are not included in the current capital budget, and as such, should council go into a lame duck situation at the end of July, the CAO in the current setup would not be able to award those projects. And so as such, we've brought forward this report here to you so that they could be included in the approved capital budget, so that should we be in a lame duck situation, the CAO would be able to award those projects and we'd be able to proceed with construction of those in 2018, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions, Councilor Broughton and Black.
Mr. Chairman, I would be glad to move the recommendation.
Okay.
Would be glad to second it.
Good enough. Any further discussion? Councilor Sonnenberg.
Mr. Chair, we keep hearing about how bad our roads are, they're crumbling, we're falling behind. I don't agree. Here we have Norfolk Street being repaired, the Blue Line, Old Highway 24 north of Waterford, Road 19 west of Boston, St. John's Road, various streets throughout all the towns. I think we're doing a pretty good job of keeping our roads up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Black.
I think Councillor Sonnenberg needs to get out more.
I drive the length and width of this county several times in my business, delivering. I can drive down any road at the speed limit and not have an issue. Thank you.
One time I drove down the road with a paper cup in the back of my truck, and it stayed there for kilometers. Okay, we do any further discussion? We do have a mover and a seconder. I'll read the report.
Okay, wait a minute.
Yes.
We should take out the blue line, just leave in the Norfolk Street North.
Let's not go there. It's moved that report PW 1847, Norfolk Street North, and the Blue Line Road resurfacing be received as information, and that the approved 2018 capital budget be amended to include $1,220,000 for resurfacing Blue Line Road and $530,000 for resurfacing Norfolk Street North. And further, that the funding for the project be provided from the Ontario Community Infrastructure Reserve Fund in the amount of $1,481,000 and $269,000 from the Federal Gas Tax Obligatory Reserve Fund. Any further discussion? Those in favor? That is carried. Spending a lot of money there. Thank you, Lee, and we'll move on to Heritage and Culture.
Mike?
What's that? Does everybody want a 5-minute break? Okay, 5-minute break, that's it. Yeah, I know, some people have to leave. It's It's my mother-in-law's birthday and I gotta take her out.
Where are you taking?
I don't know. Is Wimpy's open yet?
No. Come on, you gotta take her somewhere in July. Bunkhouse.
Maybe the bunk.
Yeah, right?
I'm gonna just check on the,
Seriously.
short break. And our next agenda item is with respect to the Downtown Simcoe Secondary Plan Information Report. It's on page 17. We have the staff here to answer questions. Councillor Black was the one that pulled this for the discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Black.
Yes, thank you very much. And just to report, at halftime there, I was able to convince Councillor Sonnenberg that the roads are actually in bad shape, and and he's calling me a whiner. But on the secondary plan, I just wanted ask a couple of questions. And I know I've been using the word, where is it now? If you go to page 6 of the report.
Is your microphone on there? Oh,
Yeah. Maybe I'm not, there's no fuzzy thing on it, or sponge.
Good enough.
I don't know, what page is it? Doesn't say on here.
You're looking at the map?
I'm looking at page 6 of the report.
17, I think it is.
Page 6 of the report is the map.
It's right at the very beginning of the agenda.
Page 17, what page?
Page 6 of the report. Okay, under Norfolk County Official Plan, and number 3, it says economic versatility. I don't see anywhere where it says viability. So my question is, that to me is a very important word, because the downtown used to have economic viability, and now it doesn't. That's why it's starting to collapse. So would that word someplace be recognized in this plan? Or maybe you don't agree with me, and maybe you can tell me why you don't.
You're asking for staff to comment
Yeah.
on that? Okay. Who's, Jen?
Through you, Mr. Chair. With regards to the economic versatility, what the thought is that the viability encompasses into the versatility. The versatility will allow for flexibility and opportunities to create new opportunities and adaptive resources from an economic perspective to the needs and the requirements of the downtown.
Okay, all right, as long as you've recognized that then. And I'm just wondering, will you be reviewing all current documents that exist? And the one I was talking to you about, a number of years ago, council did set up the Downtown Simcoe Revitalization Task Force that included all kinds of different agencies, staff, OPP, Canadian Mental Health, Social Services. So I'm wondering if you have that document and if that information will be reviewed in context of developing this downtown secondary plan.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely. We do have quite a number of information and reports. I've got a big box in my office. So I will be going through that, reviewing some of the old documentation and studies and information that we have. I was given quite a bit when Mary left. So we do have that, and we are working through some of those review.
Okay, great. And lastly, one of the biggest problems before you're going to get back, before you get anywhere with doing anything in the downtown, you're going to have to address the drug problems that involve the OPP, housing, and Canadian Mental Health. As those are some very distinct problems that are occurring in downtown. If we don't address them or resolve them, then nobody will want to come to the downtown. Nobody will want to go to any of the stores or retail or service or entertainment or food. They won't. So my question is, will this secondary plan address that problem?
Through you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the consultation and involvement, we will be dealing with a number of departments and agencies, including the ones I identified, OPP, Health and Social Services, and those types of agencies. We will have some dealings with them. In terms of specific policies to address drug problems, we won't be looking at specifically how to remove those through the revitalization. It'll be more in terms of the land use opportunities themselves.
And with that, I would move the recommendation in the report.
Okay. Further, I need a seconder for this first. Yes, Mayor Luke?
Yeah.
Further comments or discussion on this
Yeah,
one?
sorry, I should have said thank you to staff for bringing this forward. I mean, they know I appreciate it. I've talked to them before, but thank you very much. I really do appreciate this. And I think all of Norfolk County will, because you can see how the decline of the downtown affects, all of Norfolk County.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up, so the recommendation reads that report DCS 1861 Downtown Simcoe Secondary Plan Information Report be received as information. Moved by Black, seconded by Luke. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Shannon. And now we're moving on to Heritage and Culture Advisory Committee amalgamation, and this would be Melissa Culver's territory.
Thank you,
That's on
Mr.
page 171.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In anticipation of the addition of Eva Brooke Donnelly Museum and Archives to the Heritage and Culture fold, we took the opportunity to assess ways that we can streamline the operations of our department. This report outlines the proposal for an amalgamated advisory committee. We would be potentially amalgamating 5 advisory committees into one in order to streamline operations for staff while at the same time encourage a broader Norfolk County approach to the department services. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Melissa? Yes, Councillor Wells.
Mr. Chair, I don't have a question, but I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Black.
I would second it if I could speak to
Okay,
it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, there's, with the amalgamation of all these different groups, or with Eva Brooke Donnelly being on that council's representative, some of that discussion began there. I think this is a good idea that we can try, and it's agree with all the comments Melissa's put forward in the report. It could save some money and staff time as well, and also broaden our perspectives for all of the museums. So everybody knows what's going on. It'll pull them together, and maybe one group will be able to help another group, and we can put ideas in place across the county instead of just looking at it specifically for each museum or Linwood Arts.
Councillor Oliver.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, but I would like to just add to what Councillor Black just said. I think this is a great initiative. I appreciate whoever's idea it was initially for thinking of it and putting it forward, and I presume it's been discussed at the committee level of the various committees already, perhaps. Are they aware of this proposal? I hope so, and I suspect so, but I think it's a great idea.
Further? Okay. I do have a mover and a seconder, but I just wanted to ask a couple questions myself. We do get minutes from the various museum committees and that, and just wanted to, there's a number of members there that volunteer. They, put their heart out in some of this. Will that be diminished in any way? Like, they had at the Delhi Tobacco Museum and Heritage Center, they have girls' night out, they have a turkey dinner, they have different events that go on. Sorry, that's my wife. And will that be diminished in any way? And how are we going to engage to keep the volunteers inspired, make these things more inviting?
Good question. We've had a lot of discussions around that. And this advisory committee will be, as I said, take a broader approach, but each site will still service its community, and the curators and staff at each site will engage their volunteers and continue with their programming and special events, that type of thing that serves the community that they're in.
So there will be no diminishment of that
No
volunteer?
diminishment at all, at all.
Okay, let's hope so. Okay, it was moved by Wells, second by Black, and call the motion here. That report 1872 Heritage and Culture Advisory Committee amalgamation be received as information. And the council hereby approves the establishment of a new Heritage and Culture Advisory Committee to commence on January 1st, 2019, and further that staff be directed to develop the terms of reference for the Heritage and Culture Advisory Committee to be brought forward in September 2018. Those in favor? That's carried too. Thank you. And now the Port Dover Harbor Museum net shanty repairs. Is this yours, Melissa?
Yes, thank you. The Port Dover Harbor Museum is partially housed in an original net shanty, which is a historic structure designated under the Ontario Heritage Act. Funds were approved in the 2018 capital budget for repair of the windows in the net shanty portion for a cost of $18,000. However, once the consultant's report was received, it indicated that the damage extended beyond the window envelope and to the surrounding wood clapboard. So it's been recommended that a full destructive investigation be done to identify the full scope of the project before proceeding. And this report is requesting that that $18,000 be used, that's already approved, for that destructive investigation. And with that, I will entertain questions.
It's ready for questions. Councilor Wells,
Questions, but I'll move the recommendation.
seconder, Mayor Lute. Any discussion? Councilor Oliver?
Chairman, thank you. I have some difficulty with this one. It reminds me in some respects of what we ended up doing with the front door of the Simcoe Library branch when thousands of dollars were spent investigating repairing a door in that case, and here we are contemplating spending upwards of $18,000 for yet another consultant to come in and say, you've got more rot than we thought originally around the windows. I guess I still feel we've got people that are capable of doing careful, respectful repair work on that old portion of the building, and I just struggle to see the rationale for requiring a destructive investigation. What's that going to do? They're going to pull a bunch of things off all over the building, and it's going to be another Norfolk Heritage Center repair. You know, it's just, to me, let's just go ahead and repair those windows the way the original plan was. Thank you.
Further discussion? Yes, Howard Sonnenberg.
Yes, I agree with Councillor Oliver wholeheartedly. We have all kinds of qualified repair people in this county. We don't need a consultant to tell us what needs to be done. Thank you.
Okay. We do have a mover and a seconder, Wells and Luke. And you've got the recommendation there in front of you. Do I have to read it? No? Everybody understand it? Ms. Robinson.
Through the chairman to council, I just wanted to make council aware, part of the reasoning for this concern is that when you're trying to, if you take out the existing window to replace it, and there's nothing left to attach it to, we can't put anything back in because there's nothing there. And so if we don't know that extent before we start the project, this is not the correct phrase, but I think it'll give you a flavor of what we're at the contractor's mercy to be able to, and costing to fix anything without doing this testing in advance. So the reason that staff are recommending that we do this testing is our concern is that once we open up the project and we start doing work without actually doing this testing in advance, that we're going to be in a situation where we're going to be into some extremely costly repairs that we're not going to have a choice to do because we have the potential to have some significant damage to the heritage structure. And that's why we were asking for this test.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay, it has been duly moved and seconded, and everybody understands it. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is lost. That is carried, I should say. Thanks. Next report is the 2018 Extended Healthcare, Dental, Long-Term Liability, Life Insurance, and Accidental Death Dismemberment Insurance Renewal. Trevor, or Yakov, you leading this one?
I'll just make some introductory comments. So we started the closed session this morning with some employee and corporate services items, and looks like we'll have a couple of employee and corporate service items to close off the staff reports. So
If
to
you
the...
could just introduce your staff there.
Absolutely. That was why I was pivoting physically towards them. I'll certainly do so. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to my left is Mr. Trevor Meisner. He's our manager of organizational health and wellness. And to his left is Nicole Vansicle, and she's the health, wellness, and benefits coordinator. And they work as part of our greater human resources area. And with those general comments, I'll throw it over to Trevor to introduce the report.
Thank you, Yakov. As of July 1st, 2018, the Corporation of Norfolk County's Extended Healthcare, Dental, Long-Term Disability, or LTD, and Accidental Death and Dismemberment, or AD&D, benefit plans were subject to renewal. In conjunction with the 2015 renewal, Mosey & Mosey, our corporation's benefits consultants, conducted a market survey for all benefits to ensure that the overall program continued to be underwritten on a competitive basis. That resulted in decreases to the cost of long-term disability of 24.6% and life insurance of 30.7%. Both LTD and life premiums have remained at that rate since then. The 2018 renewal has resulted in an increase of 4% to the LTD premiums and an increase of 9% to the life premium. There are no increases to the AD&D premiums. For the 2018 budget, there were planned increases in both extended healthcare and dental, as well as the LTD and group life. However, largely due to a decrease in extended health claims of 2.8%, our benefit consultants were able to negotiate no increase to the extended health and dental premiums, providing that Norfolk County maintained a balance in the unrestricted deposit account, or UDA, of $264,000 or greater. Overall, as noted in the financial comments of the report, this has resulted in a favorable budget impact for 2018 in the amount of $170,000. Prescription drugs have accounted for 69.3% of all extended health care claims. Although extended health claims decreased by 2.8%, total dental claims dollars increased by 3% over the same period. Travel or out-of-country emergency benefits have been subjected to another increase this year, this of 7.3%. The reason for the increase is largely due to the increased liability costs in the industry. Our previous contract with Mosey & Mosey has ended, and staff are required to do an RFP as per the purchasing policy. Staff is asking council that they be directed that an RFP be issued in 2018 so that we have a new contract for a benefit consultant in place in 2019. I'm available for any questions regarding the report. Thank you.
Questions to Trevor? No questions? Get a mover and a seconder then. Councillor Geisens moves, Councillor Oliver seconds. That report, ECS 1827, the Extended Health and Dental and Long-Term Disability Life Insurance and Accidental Death and Dismemberment Insurance Renewals be received as information. And further, the council directs staff to issue a request for proposal in 2018 for a benefit consultant commencing in 2019. No further discussion. Those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. And I believe it's our last report is the council remuneration 1/3 tax exemption under employee and corporate services. Yakov, this one's yours.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. As part of the 2000 federal budget, which received royal assent on June 22nd of 2017, There were many changes that were brought forward. One of those changes was that one that required all municipal politicians to pay taxes on their entire salary, eliminating the 1/3 salary tax exemption. In simple terms, I'm not going to repeat the report, and you can see the charts that are in it. This will result in a reduced net pay, as shown in the table. Council, as far as the staff report is suggesting, has two options that we're suggesting in the report. One of the options is to do essentially nothing and absorb the loss of net pay. And you can see what that means for the councillors and what that means for the mayor as far as take-home pay is concerned. Or the alternative that's being suggested in the staff report is option number 2, and that is to gross up the salaries to enable the net pay to remain the same in light of the change. Now, I don't have to tell the individual sitting in front of me that a councillor's job is a 24/7 job, essentially full-time, on call at all points in time. And so at this point in time, to experience a net pay is something that is very difficult for staff to recommend as an option. The secondary component, and this is where we talk about engagement of the community and young members of the community and applying to be members of council and applying to be, heads of council from a remuneration perspective. There was an article that I saw in late June on the CBC that talked about how low the compensation is and how difficult it is to attract younger members of the community in applying for the roles. So we want members of the community to seek office and get involved in municipal politics, not be further discouraged to do so by reductions of pay. So in this report, once again, staff is asking for an equalization adjustment, not a pay raise to council, but a gross up so that the net pay ends up being the same. And I'll take any questions if you have them.
Questions for Mr. Schleikoff? Yes, Councillor Wells?
Again, if you would just repeat that, there will be no raise in councillor's salary, is that what you're saying?
I'm not even comfortable with using the word raise. That's why I use the word equalization, because all it is a gross up of the amount to result in the same net pay take home.
So when we're talking to the public, we would say that we are getting the same amount as we are getting now, but it has increased mainly because of the government legislation. Am I correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Because what people will say when they see a $20,000 raise, that's what they will call it, oh, you're getting an extra $20,000. But we are not. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And why is that so? I just want that very clearly spelled out, because somehow or another, people get the wrong impression. So would you say that again? We are not getting a raise. Why were you not? When we go from 40 to 60 or whatever it is? Whatever it is. I just use that as an example. I'd like you to explain it again.
Under the new rules proposed in the 2017 budget from the federal government, the entire salary of municipal councillors and head of council are now entirely taxable. For councillors and for the mayor not to experience a loss of pay, there needs to be, what is suggested in option 2 in the staff report, a gross up to the annual salary. Staff is recommending that that is what this council do.
Okay, Councillor Black?
I agree. I'll move the recommendation in the report.
Okay, seconder? Councillor Oliver's the seconder. Any further discussion? Don't see any. So, recommendation reads that report ECS 1828, council remuneration, 1/3 tax exemption be received as information, and that the general manager, employee, and corporate services be instructed to take all necessary steps to effect the changes contemplated in option 2 of this report. And further, that option 2 be included as the council approved initiative in the 2019 levy supported operating budget. No further discussion. Those in favor? Those opposed? One opposed. Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Yakov, for putting that together. I know some councillors were waiting for that to come forward. We have no motions, no notices of motions. We had our closed session. Other business. We'll start at the far left here with James Johnson. Ms. Culbert. Wonderful, thank you. Have a good year there. Human Resources Department? Nothing? Yakov? No? Mr. Cribbs? One item here, okay.
Last week, a large part of the senior leadership team and I had a telephone meeting with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry with respect to gas wells, and most specifically with respect to the gas well located on Forestry Farm Road on the municipal property. The MNRF has indicated to us that at this point in time, they do not view, so sort of a two-part sort of announcement. Let me back up. You will recall that roughly 3 weeks ago, we came to you and asked for $15,000 to conduct ground penetrating radar testing to obtain further data so as to be able to make better decisions. We did not spend the full $15,000, I'm happy to report. I am sad, though, or unhappy to report that it did not, we were not able to obtain any useful data to assist with the